invite you to embrace this pivotal weekend in the race to be the champions of the Premier League.
You're listening to FPL Talks. Arguably the best FPL podcast in Singapore.
It was never a debate.
It was always a debate.
It was always a debate.
Alright, hello and welcome back to another episode of FPL Copy Talks, where two gentlemen come together to speak about the game we love, Fantasy Premier League. I'm Anwar, the FPL casual, and with me, I have my buddy.
Lookman, the sensible one. How is it going, brother?
Good bro. I think I just realized in this series of the Fantasy Premier League Playbook, right?
Yeah.
This is our 7th episode, so we've recorded 6 episodes. I think on average about 40 minutes an episode, right? So that's 240 minutes of content. That's 4 hours. I mean like honestly, the rule book, if you go just to the rule book on the FPL website, it's just a page, or at least a page and a half long. But I can't believe that we actually spent 4 hours already, man, talking about this game, evaluating the different considerations for the positions and dissecting the rules and all that. I'm learning a lot myself as we go through this, and I hope that for those of you listening, it helped you as well. I mean, it's some of the discussion that you probably have in your head, but for me at least, I never got to sit down and actually dive deep into it. What's your thoughts, man?
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, I was an engaged manager, right? But even as an engaged manager, the depth of analysis that we do for this playbook series, right, is way beyond an engaged manager, like, in my opinion. If you don't do any content, like your average engaged manager. So,
yeah. It's one of those things, like a lot of things that we sit down, we theorize, we hypothesize, but we never really sit down and dissect it. And I think that having this spot and thinking about this playbook itself, I think that gives us that impetus to actually do it, right? You get what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I love FPL. FPL is such a so many dimensions, so many factors, so many things to think about. And the game is crazy. I love it.
It is. And actually this I don't know, I won't say intimidated. I think this is one of the more interesting episodes of the FPL Playbook series, because in this episode we'll be talking about crafting your FPL squad, and I think it's one of those that we really spend a lot of time on, especially pre-season, to tinker with the team, to mess around with the team, to see what works, what doesn't work. And most of the time, to me, the most important thing that I want to get right next season is to get the squad right from the get go. I think
you have a good start.
To get a good start. And I think after what we've spoken in this FPL Playbook series, and if you're listening to this now, jumping in just at crafting, go back to some of the considerations for each positions to see why we come to some of the conclusion that we have today. Right. So we'll do our best. It's a huge topic. There's so many different factors, considerations, possibilities, permutations that you can consider when doing up your first squad with your first 100 million. But we'll do our best to put it in as structured format as possible, in a logical flow, so that we can come to some conclusion at the end of this spot.
Yep. But before that, don't forget to like and subscribe, share the series, share the podcast, and if you're not on our Telegram group chat yet, right, just join. The links are embedded in the episode description.
Yep. The game might have launched when you're listening to this.
Yeah, probably.
And if you want to pull your friends, and your friends say, they don't know anything, they don't know where to start, let them know that we have this FPL Playbook series. They can start here. Might seem a bit dry, but it's the kind of I feel like, at least for me, I listen back to these episodes. It's one of those where the more you listen to it, the more some of the information makes more sense to you. Yep. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to record this episode. This is episode 142, or the chapter 7, right? Chapter 7 of chapter 7 of the FPL Playbook series, crafting your FPL squad. Without further ado, let's get into this.
This is the FPL Playbook, your ultimate guide to mastering Fantasy Premier League. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, This podcast series covers everything you need to know. From building a winning team to discovering game-changing strategies, we're here to transform casual players into engaged enthusiasts. Get ready to elevate your FPL game.
All right, welcome back. This is the Crafting Your FPL Squad episode of the Fantasy Premier League Playbook that we have here at FPL Copy Talks. I think to begin, let us just set some of the groundworks again. I think this is repeated many times, but I think it sets a good base. Just a quick reminder, we have $100 million budget, right? $100 million budget to spread across 15 players, right? You need 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, 5 forwards, and maximum players from a particular team that you can have is 3 players from a particular team, right? Anything I missed out?
Sorry. You said 5 forwards. Sorry, 3 forwards.
Sorry.
I think I thought wrongly in the on
5
the notes.
defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 forwards. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so total 15 players, and then I think maximum 3 players from the same team, right?
Yes.
Anything else that I missed out here?
No. I think
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
all.
So just a quick recap again. Let's just draw back to the discussions that we had for each position: goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. I think let's start with goalkeepers. I think the conclusion for goalkeepers was that clean sheets were hard to come by in the 23-24 season. So, but they are still the main source of points for goalkeepers. So, like Pickford and David Raya, they were the 2 top keepers, and they both kept one of the higher clean sheets compared to the rest. But of course, after that, we see that save points has a positive impact as well. So you see players like Onana, Leno, Flecken, Areola, who were in the top 5, 6 position because they had many saves, right?
Yep.
And of course, Pickford was creme de la creme with top clean sheets and top saves. So which also get him the highest position there.
Points.
So
Yeah.
so that being said, I think if you look at clean sheet potential, chances are the goalkeepers will be quite expensive, right? Right. So you're looking at like Edison and Ellison, they're all above 5.5 million and above.
Yeah, 5.5 last season.
5.5, yeah.
That's the highest.
Correct. So they're 5.5
for last
million.
season.
And then I think players like your Martinez, I think next season potentially Pickford and Raya will be at 5 million at least. Even like Nick Pope, right, from Newcastle was at 5 million because of their clean sheet potential.
Actually, he was 5.5 last season.
Yeah.
Actually, because the previous season he had a storming season.
Exactly.
So I think maybe Pickford could be 5.5. I won't be surprised.
So clean sheet is there, but I think one thing to take note here is that saves are also very, very useful. So you got players like your Leno, your Fleckens, and your Areolas who were at like 4.5 million who halt because they had plenty of saves. Right? That's for goalkeepers. For defenders, I think the discussion whether fullbacks statistically have more points than centre backs is not conclusive. But I think the conclusion that we had was that personally, for me at least, I lean towards fullbacks because of the potential for attacking returns from assists that they edge over central defenders. Right. And for midfielders, I think Lokman, you want to go through the midfielders? How we rank the midfielders?
So the midfielders, we talk about points per million, right?
No, so for midfielders, right, out of position first, right? So that's your prime pickings for your midfielders.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And then wingers.
So correct. So out of position, basically your Richarlisons. I know maybe they're not top lah, but I think Salah is considered out of position. Like your Son is out of position.
Correct.
Then after that you look for your wingers, and then your central midfielders will probably come in last. I mean, DMs are considered central midfielders, are your number 8s. Maybe on top of the DM, but yeah. So the priority is of course our position first, and then.
But one thing to take note for midfielders is set pieces. So if they're on penalties, they're on free kicks, they're on corners. Same thing for fullbacks as well. If they're on set pieces, then that increases your chances for goal involvement as well. And then last but not least, we got the forwards. So the forwards, I think there wasn't much to discuss about, just that we try to stay away from players who are played out of position in real life. So POO, right? Inverse
Yeah,
out
correct.
of position. So
Reverse,
instead of playing in positively contributing roles, they actually play
yeah,
negatively contributing roles, like maybe out wide or something like that. Right. So
yeah,
that's just a quick summary. So that when we go into the discussion later on how we want to pick players, then we will base on this. Now let's break
yep.
down points per million. Goalkeepers on average for the top for goalkeepers who play
Top,
30 games and above, 24 points per million. Okay.
that's for top. Sorry, that's for the top 10
No,
goalkeepers, top
for
scoring.
all goalkeepers that played 30 games and above. Right.
Oh, okay,
So
uh,
24.3 million. For defenders,
okay.
similarly, who played more than 30 games, on average 24.4 million. So not much different. For midfielders, for the top 20, is 25 million points per million.
25 points per million. Okay.
Okay, this is the top 20 players. And again, if you, I mean, just to nitpick a little bit, the numbers here is skewed a little upwards because of Cole Palmer.
Yep.
Right, so if you take him out, he's still about 24 million. And for forwards, uh, they for the top 10, they're about 23.7 million. So actually, right, if you look, right, if you select the right players who play out through the entire season, points per million is about the same
For every position.
for every position. So I mean, like I would put the argument aside, like whether they will get more points per million, because for different players, of course, there's difference lah. So like for example, Copama is higher and that was lower. But if you were to say that it's better to invest in a goalkeeper, forward, blah blah blah, I think generally the points per million discussion is there. But how you want to know, like, okay, how you want to know whether your investment returns you when the player is like the how do you put it? Okay, the matrix that we use to calculate, or let's say to decide how quickly
Yeah.
a player returns points for you when he's in your team is perhaps minutes per points, right? So which
Okay.
position has lesser minutes per points? That would be probably the areas where if you have someone on form, you rather want to invest your money in that position, correct? Because
Correct. So basically,
where they all get
yeah,
on average similar points per million, but some get more faster. So when you rotate players, right, you capture more points quicker.
yeah, I agree. So
Understand?
more explosive lah.
Yeah.
The higher, the more.
So for
Okay.
goalkeepers, it's 27 points per minute, which is on average 3.5 points per game. So I think we saw that quite a bit, right? Like we used to joke to say like goalkeepers, we don't know who's getting the 3 or who's getting the 0. So
Yeah.
on average, 3 points per game. For defenders, it's 21 minutes per point. That's 4.3 points per game, right?
Yep.
For midfielders, it's 16.8 minutes per point, which is about 5.5 points per game. And for forwards, it's 16.3 minutes per point, which is about 5.5. So midfield and forward, not much different. But I
Correct.
think what we spoke about last week, why personally we would prioritize midfield over forwards, is because midfield have that edge in terms of they get an additional point for goal scored over a
Yep.
forward,
And
and
a clean sheet.
they get a clean sheet advantage over a forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
So just a quick summary there. Anything
All
else you
right.
want to add on?
Nice. I think if we've covered a lot on the each position already lah. I think we
Yeah,
if you
correct.
guys still want more in depth, we just listen back to our previous episode. But let's move on to the formations, right?
You touch on that?
All right. Yeah, let's go. So we will touch on three formations, particularly. So like Anwar, I think he likes the 3-5-2. We'll
Yeah.
talk about it later. I think I'm leaning towards 3-4-3. I'll say why later. And then the third one, the third most popular, I suggest will be 4-4-2 lah. So these are the three different formations that are popular
So,
in FPLs.
correct. So, but
Yeah.
before we go into that, right? I think what I want to say is that before we go into that,
What you want to touch?
the important thing here is to also see that formation, the type of team that you want to set up. Okay.
Meaning?
So like whether you wanna go with so whether you wanna go all in on your first 11, or you wanna spread the chips as well.
Correct.
So
Good point. So
that's where we'll be discussing as well lah. Yeah.
okay, how you wanna start? So first
Okay.
11.
let's just
Focus.
start first on the formation, pros and cons of each formation, and why. Like for me personally, I like the 3-5-2 formation. Some of the pros and
Okay.
cons. And then Lokman, maybe you can talk about 3-4-3. And I think the most balanced is the 4-4-2. If you don't want
Yeah.
to, you don't want
Right.
like you want a bit of everything now, right? So for
Yeah.
me, why I like the three
Three five
five
two.
two formation is because I
Yeah.
feel that midfielders have the highest returns, potential for returns,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Even at
Which
and not only higher potential for returns, but at all price range. You get what I mean?
meaning
Meaning
because
that
Cole Palmer lah,
I
essentially.
mean, take Cole Palmer aside, if you are able to find a decent like 6 million defender midfielder who's on form, the potential to return is there. Like the form players, like we've seen in 23-24, a lot of the good pickings are in the midfield. All right,
Okay.
that's for me. Okay, so like for all price range, I mean, even apart from Cole Palmer, but like even at 5.5 million, a 6 million price range, all the way up to like 7, 8, 9. There's always something there. So there's a lot of dynamism for you to move from one position to the other in midfield. That's my
Okay.
opinion. For attack, I mean, because we cannot play a 3-6-1 formation, right? I rather put in a forward ahead of a defender. So that's
Forward
my
ahead of a defender. Oh.
yeah, correct.
Okay, you touch on the three at the back first. Why three at the back? Three at the back is why you just want to play three defenders?
Yeah, I mean 3 defenders is the minimum number of defenders that you need.
Yeah. Because they're not
So
as explosive, right? Essentially.
yeah,
That's
correct.
what
Then explosive is
yeah.
the minimum number you have. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why we have. That's why I have 3-5-2 lah.
Okay. So my 3-4-3, okay. So I agree with your 3-5-2 points at the midfielder point. So the 3-4-3 similar. I mean, I could argue that there is value in forwards. For example, Carlton Morris
Mm,
and Mateta. Okay, maybe Carlton Morris. I think Mateta is a bit an outlier. So you can get a cheap midfield forward like Carlton Morris who is on penalties, who is a talismanic player like on a weaker team. I think that is pretty stable asset. I mean not explosive but pretty stable. So I still think there's an argument for forwards over midfielders.
correct.
But the main reason why I like 3-4-3, right, is the bench fodder. So um it's better. It's more likely that a 4.5 midfielder is playing ahead of a 4.5 million forward.
Mm,
Okay, so if I play 3-4-3, means my midfielder fodder, right, actually more likely he will play lah. Then if you're 3-5-2, right, your 4.5 million forward, right, most likely doesn't play. I know Cameron Archer from last season, but I'm talking about history lah. Like usually
yeah, I get what you mean.
4.5.
I get what you mean. So for
Yeah,
those
you
of
get
you
what I mean.
listening, right, at this point in time, like, okay, so we're touching again on fodder. Like we touched this in the end of the last episode. We're talking about that here again. So I think Lokman's point here is that uh fodders are the cheapest players that you choose, right, to
Yeah,
enable
correct.
points for other position. And I think that with these cheap players, I think they in each position for let's say a defender, 4 million defender, there are there are options where they can also be an
Probably lah.
option to come on, right? And
Yeah,
then for midfield at 4.5 million, there are midfield options who can also play, right?
correct.
But
But
in attack, I think when you go to the lowest price point at like
it'll
five,
probably
four and a
be
half million, five
a,
million, they are likely non-starters.
a date. Yeah,
Yeah, so they
correct.
are
So
dead for this.
I rather have a 4.5 million midfielder on the bench rather than a 4.5 million attacker on the bench. So that's one of my arguments when that over 3-4-3 over 3-5-2.
Fair point, fair point.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
yeah, a fair point, very fair point.
yeah,
But for me, right, I
yeah.
think 3-5-2 to a 3-4-3 is very easy to shift lah.
You take it.
No, not
Two
take here. I mean,
transfers.
like if you set up your team correctly, like a 3-5-2 to 3-4-3 is something that generally you
Yeah,
would move
two
around
free
lah.
transfers. Use two transfers can really.
Or if you have a
Right. Or
decent,
you talking about your setup.
yeah,
Like you
your
can.
setup like three
So for
five
example,
two to 3-4-3 or 3-4-3 to 3-5-2 is
yeah, but I guess
very easy to
you have to
move.
be more balanced lah. Your team has to be more balanced. If you focus on your first 11, I think it's harder,
Yeah.
right?
And then the last one, of course, okay, then we touch the last formation is the 4-4-2. I think That one is a bit more
I don't
balanced
like. I
lah.
don't.
I don't
I don't like
fancy it as
442. What do
well.
you think?
Hmm?
I think the only time I'll play 442 is within my 3-4-3 squad, for example, right? The fixtures land nicely for the defender, my extra defender. Then maybe that's the only time I'll play 442. But I wouldn't set up in a 442. It depends on fixtures, like on a one-off game week. That's probably when I'll play a 442.
Okay,
How
when
about
I'll play a 4-4-2
yeah,
is from a 3-5-2 is
three
because
five?
my third forward is like Lokman mentioned earlier, non-playing a dead fodder lah. Right, and then I have an injury midfield, so I'm forced to play my
Yeah,
fourth
correct.
defender.
You play your 4.5 million defender who's on the
Yeah,
bench,
or
but
4 million
he
defender.
plays. Yeah. We quickly touch on 4-4-3. I think sorry 4-3-3. I don't like 4-3-3 because you're not playing two midfielders, the two most explosive,
Yeah,
the most explosive midfielder. That's why I don't like 4-3-3. So I don't think you should play a
I feel
4-3-3
like you need at
ever
least
lah.
four midfielders.
Yeah. Just
You need
not
four midfielders.
optimized.
Is okay. Just
Yeah,
again touching on this point is the position on the pitch which has more routes to points, clean
correct.
sheets, assists, goals. The midfielder
Yes,
captures it all, right? So for
agreed.
you to actually forgo that for like a defender and lose out on that potential, I think um, I mean, okay, the defender basically a bit better than midfield if you talk about the points that they have lah. I mean, they have additional point for a goal, but at the same time, the likelihood of
Yeah.
them scoring is much lower. I mean, on the football pitch itself, on the actual football pitch itself. So that means it, right? 3-4-3, 3-5-2, 4-4-2. Like we mentioned, there could be some flexibility. Could be some fluidity. I think at the end of the day, it becomes comes down to the strategy of your team setup or your team structure.
Yep.
I think you mentioned quite a bit on your team structure in the previous spot as well. We keep saying that this is the episode for you to listen to. Um, so okay, so for me, I'm still undecided, but I just gonna sit on the hat of all
Three
in on
five
my
two.
first 11.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sitting on the
Yeah.
hat on the all in on my first 11. That's generally how I played the last season. And I'm still contemplating whether I would go all in the next season on my first 11, right? So on the other hand, you have a more balanced approach. That means you spread your chips, you spread your money out, even to your bench to make sure that you have at least a working bench. So what I mean by working bench is bench who you can rely on for substitution, for potential points, in terms of
Injuries.
injuries, etc., etc. So let's look at pros and cons. So we got two sides of the camp here. You either first 11 or balanced squad. Let's just put it focused versus balance.
First 11
Okay.
focus. Yeah. Okay.
First
You
11
wanna
focus
go with
versus balance. So I'll start with focus first. I think the main benefit of having focus is that with your bench for this, that means having a non-working bench or very, very like the
weak
cheapest
bench
bench.
lah.
So basically, with
Yeah.
focus, right, I will go with a 4 million bench goalkeeper.
Yeah.
4 million, 4 million bench
Defenders.
defenders, and
4.5 million
4.5
forward.
million bench forward. Right.
Yeah.
So with this money, right, that means with this forwards itself, right, I'm already down with 16.5. So I've got a full 83.5 million left to focus on the entire squad. Okay.
Yeah.
So with the
Correct.
83.5, it enables a few things. So for example, last season I was able to own both Haaland and
Salah.
Salah, which were premium assets, like ultra premium assets. Right? They
Yeah.
were the ultra premium assets. I would say would be assets that you can either have one or two, and then you can't afford anything else really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Correct.
they are
You can't
priced
afford the
such a
next
way.
the tier below you can't really afford lah. Like the 10 and
Yeah.
9 million
Correct.
if you have both. Yeah. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
that is what I would do. So based on this, right, that's the pros. Is that you get to focus and you get this top ultra premium asset. At the same time, you still have enough funds to move around to get decent-ish players all around the pitch lah. So like based on this, I could still afford a decent 4.5 million goalkeeper. We've seen that 4.5 million, if you get the right pick, is a good one there.
Yep.
In defense, I've got 5 million, 5 million, 4.5 million, right?
Yep.
And then
Correct.
in my midfield, I've got that Salah. I'm putting him there, 13 million, if he's still around. Then and then I still have like 2 9 million options, but then I have to go to two like mid-price options at like 6 or 6.5 million. And I see that,
Which is okay lah.
and it's okay because we see players like Garnacho, players like Pedro Netos. We have this kind of players in that price range, but a bit more challenging lah. I mean, if you are looking to go template, right? So it's a bit more challenging to do that. Up front, I have, of course, Haaland. I think in all our analysis, we put Haaland there at 14 million.
Yep.
And another
Correct.
forward, which is probably slightly mid price at about 7 million forward. So I think it's pretty decent. One thing that I did last season was depending on how the goalkeepers layout, I would like to have two goalkeepers, starting goalkeepers lah. I think
Why?
that would be a priority to rotate injury risk. Basically injury risk and to rotate for rotation.
Okay. So
Right.
basically everything is focused except for your goalkeeper lah.
Correct, except for my
The
goalkeeper.
goalkeeper is
That's
more
the only
balanced.
thing that I would go a bit more balanced because of what happened last season. So basically, right, okay, so the main downside to this is that you only have one free transfer to deal with any injuries.
Injuries.
So the
Yeah.
moment you have more than one injury, that's where you start to take hits. And I think that's where the challenge comes in. Right. So you don't have
Okay.
the flexibility to actually like plan too far ahead in how you want to move because you've got to keep the transfers in your pocket for any injuries or any suspension or anything like that. So it's a bit more challenging. I had plans, but I had like a 5 week game plan, but within 1 week or 2 weeks, it was so easily dismantled because you've got the injury or you've got the suspension and you've got to deal with that. And I think to get the forward, like to get this focus strategy right, you really need the right players in. So I started off the season with, I won't say the best team, but by game week 8, I had to do a wild card to fix the team. Right. And with the
Yep.
wild card, then we saw that okay, it was a bit more successful. So at the start of the season, it could be a hit or miss kind of strategy. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a
I
bold
get what you
strategy
mean.
with high upside return, but at the same time, if you get one or two moving parts wrong, then
Yeah.
yeah, it
Okay, I want to
gets
talk about
yeah.
okay, more first 11 focus. That's how I would usually make my team too. But I want to talk about more macro factors. So number one, right? The goalkeeper I will not care. I mean, I think I will get one and 4 million will be my sub. I mean your injury point, okay, I take your point, but I feel like it's very rare. It's must get very unlucky to get who's the goalkeeper who got injured?
I think Johnston and Ariola. Then Johnston was out.
Oh,
Then Ariola was out also for a short while. So
Johnson got
despite
Henderson, right? Okay.
yeah, so despite
Yeah.
having a decent
I feel like that 0.5 million that you buy to spend on your reserve goalkeeper, I'd rather spend it on the outfield. I like to maximize more. Secondly is it's also I don't like rotating. I want my bench to be my bench every week. So I don't have to make an extra decision every week. You know, like last season, okay, rotation goalkeeper sometimes I hate rotation goalkeeper because if a goalkeeper have a bad fixture, right, he could haul because there's more potential for save points, etc. Like, you know what I mean? So it's hard to get rotation goalkeeper to get it right every week. And then you just feel like shit if your bench goalkeeper, it's like your mental health also your bench goalkeeper. So I feel like
that's just weak
huh?
mentality, man.
No, it's the enjoyment of the game also. Like you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to make extra decision. The game is hard enough that I don't want to be rotating. Like for example, last season, famously, I didn't put Garnacho in my bench. My first I put McCarthy instead because I don't want to have that headache. Or should I play Garnacho this way? I don't want to get that headache. I just want my best in my bench, and then when they come on, means they come on lah. But yeah, I think last season it probably didn't pay off because Garnacho did well, and I could have used him. But yeah, so my philosophy is like just focus on the first 11 and then like make the game simpler lah. So your bench is your bench, no rotation.
But you
What do you
want to
think?
look for working bench, basically.
Yeah, for
as
sure.
far as
So
possible lah.
that's why I prefer the 3-5, the my earlier point 3-4-3. So my 4.5 million midfielder hopefully plays. If my 4.5 forward doesn't play, that's why I don't really like it. Then I have to depend on the 4 million defenders. So it's a working match lah for sure. As much as possible, they have to at least play lah. So but I will not start them because there's another point. So if they are injured, right, for example, one of my players are injured, right, I just use my free transfer lah. I mean, we have one every week, right? So I can comfortably transfer. I will comfortably take hits lah for. I don't mind taking hits on injured players. I think it will pay off in the long term. So I'm okay with that.
Okay,
So
so we'll talk
yeah.
about transfer strategy in the next
Yeah.
in the next spot. But I think here
Yeah.
it's about setting up the team. So I think generally the main upside of focusing on your first 11 is you don't have that like Lokman mentioned, you don't have that conundrum lah, that
The
conundrum on who
decision.
to start, the decision to make. Pros and cons, like I mentioned earlier, you need to get a decision right. But at the same
Yep.
time, the downside is that if you take hits, it takes a lot for you to rectify a team in terms of like mass injury. So the moment you have like 2 or 3 injuries, you need to decide what you want to do with the team, right?
Yeah, that's a con lah.
So okay, so generally, where we are tight, our hands are tight here is that for the forwards, all right. So if you have 4-4-2, 3-5-2, or even 3-4-3, right? Haaland is fixed there, 14 million. Your other
Yep.
forward options is at 7 million. Right. So
Yep.
it's unlikely that you'll be able to afford
Watkins or Solanke.
Watkins or Solanke in.
Yeah.
Unless
is
you
okay.
forgo like your Salah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't want one premium, then after that, okay, you can forgo a midfield option like your Salah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Correct.
then you can have that,
No, actually,
move
no,
back.
actually not salah lah. Maybe you can forgo Saka or Palmer at 9-10 million.
Yeah,
if
but
you
you gotta forgo one of your midfield option lah.
Yeah. Correct.
So I mean,
So
it's a huge, it's a lot of factors here involved. So let's just look at this. So for me, I like my two Haaland and Salah in the same team. Okay, so how I would set up is probably with, like I mentioned, two forwards, one at 40 million, one at 7 million. Right,
yeah.
and then for my midfield, I will have like Salah 9 million, which is like your Saka and maybe Cole Palmer at that price point next season. And
Yeah.
then I have two mid-price midfielders. So two mid-price midfielders, two premium, and one ultra premium.
Yeah.
Up front, I have one ultra premium and a mid-price attacker. So that is where I will go, and I cannot afford any premium defenders. The maximum I can go with a defender is the 5 million.
Yeah, I think it's fine. The era of premium defenders are probably that, unless Trent comes back with a bomb under Ani's.
But I'm just concerned that like even Gabriel and like those Arsenal
6 million.
defenders will come up to
They'll
like
be
6 million, then it'd be a bit challenging.
Yeah.
Okay,
Get
because you want
Raya at
those
5 million.
assets in.
Okay, so just a different 3-4-3, similar to Anwar. So Salah, Haaland, and then instead of his like 6.5 million midfielder, maybe I'll get a 6.5 million forward, or maybe 7 million. Then I can budget somewhere else. So similar lah. It's between my 7 million midfielder, my 7 million forward against your 7 million midfielder lah, just for comparison sake. So yeah, so for example, maybe Mateta versus Eze. You think Eze will be 7 million? Maybe he'll be more.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, so roughly lah, like similar lah. Our defenders are the same, just the difference between a forward and the midfielder. So similar setup. Haaland and Salah are locked in my team also.
Alright.
Probably. Now talk about balance. Pros and cons quickly.
Yeah. We talk about balance. So I think balance is basically you spread your chips all around to have a bench which is like
5.5 million
it's
forward.
an option, so like a 5.5 million forward option, one 4.5 million defender bench, and a 5.5 let's say midfielder bench, and a 4.5 goalkeeper. I think the good thing here is that you can still go with a relatively template team. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Except for like one, you can't get Salah lah. We just take Salah
without
out and then
Salah,
you can
but
have,
I mean for midfielders, I think generally you probably have like 7 or 8 template midfielders. You still can
Yeah.
feel the 5 template midfielders, 4 template midfielders there. You can
Yeah.
feel, you can probably feel the full 11 of template plus your bench can also be a template bench. So the good thing about
Yeah.
having template bench is that you ride with the wave. So if the players
Yeah.
perform, everyone moves together. The players don't perform, and I think it is also quite a decent strategy. I would say, like not having too many differentials to worry about. So maybe you can have 1 or 2 differentials that you do, but the rest of your team is relatively stable.
Yeah.
What's your
Agree.
thoughts?
I think I think that the pros definitely is a more balanced team. So you just need to dodge the like Salah for example, and then the rest hopefully your Saka, Palmer's, Foden can
Mm.
like so called catch up with Salah lah. And I feel like another point is you have a balanced squad, right? You can if somebody's injured, you don't have to make a transfer. You can roll. You can play your bench. So that's one more pro of having a balanced squad. You
Yeah,
don't have
correct.
to. But the argument to that is if you're injured player, right? One of the reasons why I said earlier why I don't mind transferring them out, right? Because they will drop in price also. We'll talk about price changes. So
Yeah.
like Anwar's your team value last season was bad. Maybe that's one of the reasons. Like your injured player or your player who's not in the country, right?
Yeah, I
You
didn't
hold
have
them,
time. I
right?
didn't take
So
the
that
hit.
you didn't want to take hit. So that's one thing like team value do play a part
A
in the
little
long
lah.
run. Like it does play a small part. It's part of the game lah. So that's one of the reasons why.
Just fun fact lah. I had
Hold,
a million. I think at least a $1.5 million less team value than Lokman last season.
yeah,
But I
that's a lot.
finished 300,000 above him.
And also I didn't have a good team value. FYI. I think I'm also like average to
Yeah.
low. But that you were I don't know what
I
went
was
wrong.
lucky. I mean, the focus lah, the focus. So I mean, you can listen to the review
Yeah.
podcast again where we reviewed our team. It was a huge long one. I don't want to get into that again. But yeah, I think before that, like let's draw back a little bit. I think we've been rambling on a bit about formations and all this, and I think there's a lot of factors. But I think the first thing that we should do is what are the steps to take? You get what I mean?
When you for your first
When
step
you
lah.
first step. So I think the first step is to decide who are the premiums that you must have. I think
Yeah. Those
that's
non-negotiables
always
lah.
yeah, like for you, not I won't say non-negotiable, that you would like to have, and don't be greedy lah. Don't say you would like to have 11 premiums because you know you cannot be able to afford that,
Yeah.
right?
So
So the first step for me is just select the premiums that you want. So for me, I
yeah.
will always go with Haaland. I will go with Salah, right? And
Same.
then I will go with one 9 million, 10 million midfielder like Son or Saka. So this is how I'll start up first. Right, so up to you. You can go with just Haaland and maybe two premium
Yeah.
midfielders and maybe 1 6 million Gabriel or Saliba, for example. This could be your priority, right?
Yeah.
Decide what you
No, what
want
you can
first. Yeah.
actually what we did you guys can't see it lah, like the price we broke down each position add up to 100, right? So what we can do, right, is just put any player in that price
Mm,
point and then you from there you change lah. For example, like you put any 4.5 million goalkeeper and any 4 million goalkeeper, then you work from there, like you see who's in that price, and in the later tinkering, right, you can change the price. But then of course you put Hala and Salah and then you work your way
correct.
from there lah.
So then
Yeah.
after you choose your premiums, right? I think the next one, before you go to the rest of the play, because this is before the season start. There's not much statistics out there. You don't know how the players going to play in the new season. Whether they come back, they lethargic or they had a good rest. They're gonna start the season like running. We don't know the information, right? So I think the
Yeah.
premiums are there because we generally trust them to return some points. And then after that, we want to know how much budget we have left for the rest. I think the next one would be good to look at choosing the right forwards. I think a bit of research
Okay.
will be useful there.
Yeah.
So we will talk on it on this spot as the game progress, as the days
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I think identifying the right forwards is as important, or if not more
Yeah.
important, than choosing the premiums.
I
This is my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like for this is also can be template. Like if there's somebody, yeah, you just if you're engaged, right, you on X or what, right, there will definitely be a template for the like, I think like a 4.5 million. I think 2 seasons ago, Andres Pereira was a 4.5 million
Yeah.
number 10. So there will bench for the I feel like yeah, it could be a template, and probably somebody will come up. Yeah,
So where I went wrong last season was I went in like, oh, this I just took any 4 million, 4.5 million attackers. So I like Mubama or Ong Wee Jo or something like that. And then like within a few weeks they were transferred
yeah.
out or they were loaned out. And then the player was there as my fodder. Because you don't do transfers on fodders, right? You don't want to touch your fodders. So what happened was
Yeah.
their value just dropped and then I lost money there quite easily.
Yeah.
Lah. So
Actually,
yeah.
one of the things, if you get a fodder who is highly owned, right, which means there's highly likely that they might drop in price also. So that's something to take note. So sometimes you just want to go for a less owned fodder, for example, in case his
Yeah.
price don't. I think is also one more thing you said just now, right? Who's tired and all and stuff, right? Haaland and Salah, right? They are not on any international competition now, right
Yeah,
now, so they
they're
should
not.
be fresh. Yeah. That's
But
FYI.
either fresh or they could be rusty. Yeah. So anyway,
Oh, have you seen Salah's pictures now, bro? When he posts,
yeah, he look,
that's not rusty, bro. His
let's
body
let's
is.
not go there. Anyway, so after selecting your premium assets, who you want to have in like your 3 or 4 like wish list, choosing the right fodder, then I think the next one is again your strategy lah. After you choose your fodder, right, whether you want to have 2 fodders or 3 fodders or 4 fodders, like bench fodders,
Yeah,
like how you
correct.
want to work your
Yeah,
bench. Then after that, right, I think the next step is to actually ask yourself, like, for the remaining team players, right? Because there are a lot of mid price players that you can choose from. There's generally 2 ways you can go. You can just go template, that means to go with what the majority are going, or you can go with differential. So
yeah.
I think it's always fun to have differentials. Differentials are basically players with lower EO lah. We have this game called the
Off the
off
menu.
the menu where we pick differentials below 5%. So for us, below 5% is a good differential. So with that being said, I think there is this tendency for you to want to be unique. I think like you play FPL. I think there's this tendency, especially if you're casual, you want to be unique. You don't want to follow the flow. Blah 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 blah. But what I've learned is that at the end of the day, you can be unique in 1 or 2 players, but you don't want to go too deep, too far with too many differentials because that's just what you call it, the gambling addiction starting. Yeah, so
In
you
other words,
start
don't try to
gamble.
be too smart, lah. Too smart for yourself, lah.
Yeah, I mean
Don't try to.
this is my personal advice lah. I mean like I would still go for a
Yeah,
differential. Take a punt on 1 or 2 players who you think not many people are picking, but generally uh, if majority of players are picking certain players, and even if it does not make too much sense to you, I mean, like if let's say the fundamentals makes like 60% sense to you or 70% sense to you, I think it's still a good to go. That's my opinion,
okay,
right?
that's fair.
Unless it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's quite difficult unless you really are convinced by your differential pick. Otherwise, I think 1 or 2 should be a good pun.
For me, it's not the differential that is important. Right? For me, it's the template that you are not going with that is more important. So if you're going for a differential, means you're foregoing a
Correct,
template.
correct, correct.
So how do you for me it's Cole Palmer last season, right? So how my thought process of foregoing him, I mean there were a few that I came up with like whether it's viable, whether it's true or not. But you have to really consider like why a differential what makes it more risky is the fact that you're foregoing a template. So that's something you need to take note.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And then I think there are some decisions to be made. So again, your
Yeah.
strategy on how you want to approach the season, whether you want to always be looking at deciding who you want to start or who you want to bench, that could be something. Some managers like that flexibility, that option to go with maybe 4-4-2 to write the fixtures. I think we'll talk about that 2 or 3 episodes down where we talk about fixture finesse. Right.
Yep.
I mean, some managers like to play the fixtures. There's nothing wrong with that. To have players who you can rotate based on fixture difficulty rating, that is something that is a strategy as well. Then the other one is of course what was I gonna say?
Captaincy.
Captaincy.
No.
No, bench. Whether you don't want to have the headache. That means you just want to feel the same 11 every week. So that's
Yeah.
another thing lah. And then of course the last
Okay.
one is your captaincy decision, where how
Okay.
you
So
want to
yeah.
play your
Okay. No.
captaincy option.
So the question is, I think shout out ABK. So last season he went on the thought process of he's not going to have Salah, because he's not going to captain him. So I want to ask you. So is it worth spending for a premium if you're not going to captain him?
No, so at the end of the day, right? The discussion here is quite, to me, is quite
Yeah.
straightforward. If you look
Why?
at points per million, we've already said that it doesn't matter how many points per million you put in, because how much you spend on a player, because generally on average they come back to about the same points per million. You
But
get what I mean?
captaincy is different. Right?
Yeah,
Captaincy?
no, so captaincy is double. So again, like captaincy should go to the player who's on form or who has highest potential to return that
Hmm.
week. So it's
So you're
okay. So
saying
his
like,
point is that like you're spending 13 million, not captaining him, you're not getting doubling points on him. It's not worth it. But I think at the end of the day, he's still getting more points. It's just
yeah,
a
correct.
discussion of one over the other. I think I
Yeah,
personally I feel it's a bit flawed. So to me, I don't mind that captaincy conundrum. I think it's something which it's a happy
yeah,
problem to
yeah.
have. But yeah, um,
So you're saying it's okay not to captain a premium lah,
yeah, it's perfectly
right?
fine not to
Yeah,
captain the premium. Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you. I think it doesn't matter.
I mean it's okay to
If he
have two
gets the
ultra
points,
premium and then one might get more points than the other, but you
yeah,
shouldn't feel too
yeah, okay.
like lost out if you don't do that. So
I
yeah,
concur.
so many points here. We've talked about formations. I think you first need to consider some formations that are more popular and what are some of the pros and cons of those formations. From there, I think the first step is to look at who are your non-negotiables. I think a lot of managers would not want to go without Haaland next season, so that will be 14 million in locked into your team. And then after that, maybe if you want to go for premium midfielder or premium centre back, like your
Yep,
Saliba or whatsoever, you can
Gabriel.
go there, Gabriel. And then from there, the next step, I think the one that needs a bit more research, I feel, is to get the right folders in. So you can listen
Can.
to us. Stay tuned to our IG or our podcast. We will talk a bit more about the folders and the right folders that we
Yep.
think we'll be playing, and
So
we'll debate on that one.
I think we'll wrap up
And then wait,
crafting your FPL squad.
before
Oh,
that,
sorry.
sorry, I'm not done with the summary. So yeah, so
Sorry.
your premium is set, your for this, right? And then
Yeah.
your strategy for the season, whether you want to go with I mean, from there you can see right, after the folders, you realize, oh, okay, I feel that we have pretty decent folders this season that could actually have good playing potential. Then you can go
Yeah.
to having focus on your first 11 or your balance
Okay.
approach. So it depends what's there lah. Yeah, and
So we'll talk
then last
about
one
this.
is
Yeah. Sorry. Continue. Continue.
yeah, and
What's the
then
last one?
and then the how you want to play your FPL throughout the season. Whether you want to be tinkering with some considerations, whether you want to be tinkering with the bench, whether you want to be tied up with the first 11. I think
Okay.
that's something, and captaincy decision.
Yeah. Okay. I think pretty comprehensive. I think Kenny. So all the stats earlier, right? The PPM and all the your other stats, right? It's all done by Anwar. So I don't know whether you can you say you FPL casual, man? You cannot be called FPL casual anymore. You maybe must think of another name, bro. Because you
Still
are
casual
deep
lah.
into it. Still casual lah.
Still
Okay, lucky
casual.
lah.
Yeah. I mean, I do this
Okay. So,
preseason, postseason analysis, but during the game itself, I take it game by game.
sure. Okay, so our next playbook series. So this episode will be out on Wednesday, 10 July. But I think this week, the next one will be Euros, our last Euros to the final. And the following week, I think we have 3 more episodes to cover for the playbook series is transfers, chips, and
Mm.
fixtures. Right.
Yep,
So when you
correct.
want to talk about the just now when we said the folders and the strategies, that will be during the playbook, or I should ask you off pod lah, but I just ask you now.
No. I'm saying that you should consider as an individual
Oh, okay,
how
yeah,
you
okay. I
want to
thought you.
be, how you want to play the game. It's not about pros and cons. This at the end of the day, right? That this strategy it boils down to you as an individual. Whether you're a high risk, high return kind of person, whether you're a more conservative person, how you want to approach your FPL game, that's entirely up to you. I mean, we're not here to decide how
I
you want to play the game. I think
play
what
your
we
own
want to
way.
do is we just want to provide certain angles for your consideration so that you have the right tools to attack the game the way you want to play it. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Because I think there's no one size that fits all. at the end of the day, I think there's only one drink to rule them all. No lah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's always the race to the top 1K or whatever rankings. But at the end of the day, it's to me at least it's to have fun, but also to see progress, because it's always fun to have more points than your mate next to you or your buddies who's playing this game with you, and at the same time,
Yeah.
there's more reason to keep yourself glued on to the football matches on TV.
But my advice is try to make your own choices. So try not to be like have a thought process and your decisions,
Yeah,
right? You try
exactly.
to make your own decision. So you can get information from content creators and then like formulate your own decisions and
Exactly,
like play
exactly.
it your way. Play it
So
your
I
way.
think I think
Have fun.
very very good point there. I think what Lukman say, a very good point. I think if generally if you listen to FPL Copy Talks, we don't generally push for a certain agenda, push for a certain player, or like we don't say, okay, this is the top 10 players that you must have in your team. If not, you're gonna lose out. We don't go that. We don't go that. I think it's more of a discussion. It's more of like a collaboration of ideas, bouncing of seeing things from different angles, and I think that's where you get a. I mean, it's all about the community. So play it your way.
Right.
Play it your way. Make your own decisions. You'll be so tempted, especially if you're new, right? You'll be so tempted to just want to copy someone else's, and it's not wrong to do that to start with, lah. But if you want to know, go deeper into the reasoning behind why some of these players are more popular than the other, then you probably would benefit from this FPL Playbook series.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy the you have to enjoy the process, and also you hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you, Anwar. We appreciate all your support. Do give us a like, subscribe, and share the episode on to your friends, to whoever who will be interested, who are FPL casuals who are starting to play again after a while. So yeah, find us on IG, Facebook. We are on TikTok, also YouTube and X.
Yep, and I think the FPL Playbook series, unlike all the other series that we have, I think this is one that you can go back and listen to again, because some of the information are less time sensitive and more relevant throughout the season. So even if you're like wild carding, you probably could go back and listen to this one to see some of the considerations that you might have missed out for each position, for example. Right. So
Okay.
start of season, wild card, mid season, I think if you ever need some reminder or refresher, I think this playbook series discussion will be quite beneficial. Right.
Yes,
If not,
sir.
I think that's all we have for this crafting your FPL squad episode. Once again, despite doing all the data analysis, I think I'm still the FPL casual, because that's how I approach the game. So I'm not the FPL casual. It's a good pot.
I'm Lukman, the sensible one. Thank you for listening. We are FPL Copy Talks, signing out.
You're listening to FPL Copy Talks. Right here. Right now.